Hello and welcome to Vox Markets. I am John Human and I'm very pleased to be joined today by Chris Hemingway, who is the Executive Chairman of newly Aquis listed Time to Act PLC. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you very much. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too. So yeah, you've braved some tough markets to get to market. And I think a lot of that, is down to the fact you have a very, very interesting proposition in Time to Act. Do tell us a bit about the company and yourself.
So Time to Act is an engineering-led group focused on the energy transition supply chain. And what that means is that we're a group of companies. So we're not a private equity business or a venture capital company. We are an operating company that operates our businesses. We're engineering-led, and engineering means lots of things to lots of different people. But to us, it means innovation. It means intellectual property. It means know-how. It means trade secrets. It's not bolting pieces of metal together, nothing as simple as that. And lastly, we are in the supply chain for the energy transition. So I think everyone understands what the energy transition is, which is decarbonising the world. But we're in the supply chain. So what that means is that we're not the people that are building 20 megawatt offshore wind turbines. We're not building massive hydrogen plants. We're not inventing nuclear fission. We're innovating in the supply chain in those industries. So we're supplying a lot of our goods and our services and our products and our technologies into those customer industries.
Yeah, and one thing I was going to ask you is, tell us about the trends that you're tapping into. But I think the best way perhaps to do that is to tell us about the two divisions that you currently have within the group, what they do, and what problems they're solving within the supply chain.
Yeah, so we have two divisions. The first division is Diffusion Alloys, which is a coatings company. Diffusion Alloys is actually a 60-year-old coatings company, has been around for a very long time. Historically, diffusion coatings have been used primarily in gas turbines and coating gas turbine blades. What we did, we were a major player within that industry. We shut that business line down, relocated our plant and our people to Middlesbrough, and now focus entirely on coating components for renewable technology, clean tech, green tech industries. And what that means actually is any industrial process, which is a high temperature process, you're going to have all sorts of corrosion issues, sulfidation, carburization. What our coating does is that it protects metal parts against those high temperature corrosions. So we're operating in the blue hydrogen industry, and we announced a year or so ago a major supply chain partnership with Johnson Matthey. We coat components in the green hydrogen industry. We coat components in the nuclear industry, in e-fuels, in all sorts of different high temperature processes where our coating helps to avoid those corrosion mechanisms. Our second business is a development business, a pre-revenue business, although it's just entering revenue stage at the moment. And that business is called Greenspur. And Greenspur started on the path a few years ago to develop a new type of generator for the wind turbine industry. And by new, what I mean is the innovation that is in it is that it is free of rare earth magnets, or rare earth metals and rare earth magnets. And there are all sorts of supply chain issues around the supply of rare earth magnets, which are predominantly produced out of China. And secondly, it is copper free. So instead of using copper coils, we use aluminium coils. And very clearly, the industrial world and the clean technology world at the moment is very, very concerned about the supply of copper and the likely supply of copper over the next decade, whether there will be sufficient copper to meet all the demand. Remember that copper is in every single coil, in every single electric motor and every single electric generator. And given that the core of this energy transition is electrification, we're going to need a lot more electric product and a lot more electrical generating capacity. That supply of copper is forecast to run quite short. And so we avoid that by using aluminium coils. And we have proprietary technology on how to shape and form those coils using aluminium.
Yeah, and I mean the copper issue is really highlighted by what's been going on in the copper markets recently. The prices has shot up in recent weeks. So I guess you're playing into really two massive trends here, as you say, the energy transition, but the sort of energy security side of things as well, and in terms of the sort of the geopolitics of energy.
I think that's a very good point. There are lots of challenges towards moving towards meeting the energy transition. And those challenges are, firstly, belief. Is there a greenhouse effect problem? Is there a global warming problem? Are we facing all of those issues? And I think we've largely met and answered that question, that yes, there is a problem, and yes, we're going to have to do something to change it. The second factor is finance, and this is what we're seeing playing out across all of these industries at the moment, is that the availability of finance and the amount of money, the sheer amount of money that's going to be needed to build out all of this capacity and build out these technologies is enormous. And it was easier when we were operating in a no inflation, low interest rate world to operating in an inflationary, higher interest rate world. And so financing is going to be an issue. But then thirdly, is what you've alluded to. There are supply chain issues, there are geopolitical issues. Every single industry, every single sub-industry that I've mentioned needs to build up its own supply chain. And within each of those supply chains, you're going to find shortages of materials, shortages of metals that are required to meet the demand growth rates that we're talking about in some of these industries. And so, yes, we very clearly play into that shortage, that impending shortage of many, many of these materials. And you mentioned the price of copper. I think you only need to look at the bid for Anglo-American, BHP's bid for Anglo-American when the effect happens. That is all about securing the supply of existing copper mines.
Yeah, no, a lot of tailwinds there for time to act. Something you alluded to there was the level of knowledge, intellectual property, know-how within the group. Can you sort of talk us through, how well protected you are, and sort of the expertise that sits behind the group to deliver, these really innovative products?
So we're protected in two different ways, and the two businesses each have differing levels of protection. So Diffusion Alloys is more protected by its know-how, trade secrets, processing know-how. Having been around for such a long period of time, it has found, and we have found as we've moved that business out of the gas turbine market into these new markets, that actually there's a lack of knowledge around the world as to how to coat a lot of these parts. And so the knowledge that we draw on is all of that intellectual capacity, intellectual know-how, rather than patents. And patent protection is what you find in our other business within Greenspur. So Greenspur has 11 different patents at various different stages of grant around various different geographical areas of the world. And so very much is a patent-driven protection. And we drive that through the quality of our engineering and technical teams. We have some very highly qualified engineers, very highly qualified technical staff who are some of the best in the world at what they're doing.
No, absolutely. And tell us also, what's the significance of the deal with Johnson Matthey? Where does that potentially take the group?
So the deal with Johnson Matthey, that relates to the Diffusion Alloys business. So Diffusion Alloys has been coating parts for Johnson Matthey for in excess of a decade. Johnson Matthey has a very significant focus on using its technology to build out the blue hydrogen industry. And blue hydrogen is old, dirty, grey hydrogen, but capturing the CO2. In order to build that industry out, they need a reliable chain, a reliable supply chain of suppliers. And having worked with them over a period of time, a long period of time, they came to recognize the fact that they needed to look at their own supply chain and ensure that the stability within that supply chain. And so the partnership agreement that we have struck is a supply chain partnership agreement. We are there to support their demand growth expectations within blue hydrogen. And Johnson Matthey itself, you look at their own public information that they publicly released, publicly talk about, they have announced, I believe, 5 blue hydrogen plants, which will be built over the course of the next couple of years. And we will be or a preferred supplier of coated components going into the carbon capture piece of those plants.
Yeah, so a major part of real validation of the strategy. Now, speaking of the strategy, the idea is that you currently have these two divisions. The idea is to potentially acquire more, build up the group through acquisitions. And what I really like about where you're approaching this, and you've alluded to it already, as an operator, not an investor. And I think, as you put it in your material, best owner mentality with small company flexibility. Can you talk us through how that works? It is a very interesting model.
Yeah, we took a decision a couple of years ago when we formed Time to Act, and the business was only formed in 2019, albeit that the two businesses that we have within the group predate the formation of Time to Act. Formed in 2019 with a view to being a permanent capital entity. And that is to say, we have a couple of businesses within our group, and we would like to be the forever owners of those businesses. And so we have permanent capital in those businesses, and we expect to turn over our shareholders. And this is obviously part of the reason for a public listing, is to put in place that permanent capital, but to give the shareholders the flexibility to come and go, to come hopefully more than go over the next few years, and to grow with us. So we encapsulate that in what we call a best owner mentality, which is that we would like to be the forever owner of these businesses. We're certainly not a private equity house or a venture capital trust that has to sell these businesses and give that money back to shareholders over time, hence the permanent capital nature. But we also say best owner. And what that means is that if someone else comes along at some stage in the future and thinks or demonstrates that they can be a better owner than us, then we would certainly consider selling those. And one of the key strengths of the business is that we have this ability across our board and senior management team of building, creating, nurturing strategic relationships with big players within these industries. Yeah. And these industries are going to be all about growth, cooperation, collaboration, mergers, acquisitions. No company, certainly not a company of our size, is going to be capable of meeting all of these growth targets on their own. Yeah. And so we want to be a part of that, and we will encourage collaborations, and as necessary, if necessary, if we're not the best owner of any of those businesses, then we will or may sell one of those in the future. In terms of acquisitions, we at the moment clearly have more than enough challenge on our plate at the moment with our two existing businesses to make sure that we capture all of the growth opportunities across those two businesses. And so while we will look at acquisitions, there are certainly a number of fill-in acquisitions that we would like to make over a period of time. It's not the single most important priority that we have within the group at the moment. The priority is capturing all of the growth opportunities within the existing two businesses, making sure that we don't miss out on those, and then we'll think about acquisitions.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And those opportunities are massive in their own right that you're already addressing. So perhaps let's talk about where you go next in terms of those businesses. You're already profitable, and I think this is a very important thing to note. So you're coming to market profitable, haven't needed to raise money. What is the rationale behind listing at this point?
The rationale is that in the longer term, we want to be able to offer our shareholders the opportunity not only to grow with the company, but potentially to exit over time if they want to. Also, obviously, to encourage new shareholders into the business in order to be able to participate in our exciting growth trajectory. And so it's turning over those shareholders. It is bringing in particularly those new shareholders that want to participate in this growth story. That's the idea behind the public market listing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I presume, akin to what you talked about in respect of Johnson Matthey, another way forward is going to be partnership and collaboration. You sort of talk us through perhaps where you go in that regard.
Partnerships and collaborations, you will see that happening across the whole of the green tech, clean tech space. When you look at the biggest energy equipment companies in the world, even they are saying that they are not big enough in their own right to be able to address these growth market opportunities without collaborations, without partnerships. And so you're going to see a lot of activity. Clearly, I'm not going to talk about, and I don't wish to talk about, and I shouldn't be allowed to talk about any of the specific opportunities that we see in that regard at the moment. But they will come. Mergers and acquisitions, collaborations and partnerships will be a big part of the green tech, clean tech supply chain over the next decade or more.
Yeah, and you've obviously put in place a very strong foundation to tap into that and address some of the huge challenges that lay in front of us in terms of the energy transition. Chris, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you, and congratulations on your IPO.
Very good. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your interest.
Thank you.